let's start with your 2-round mock draft from last week, okay? The Jags take Mason Graham, not shocking. And sitting there for them at 36 is, I guess, the guy I would most closely compare to Mason Graham in terms of being a penetrating potential 3 technique. Walter Nolan is sitting there, and you double dip for the Jags with 2 defensive tackles. Give us your thoughts on this. How likely is it that Nolan could make it to the second round? Are they 2 similar type of players, or do you see them coexisting together if it were to fall that way?
Well, I don't know that Nolan's going to fall. I'm getting anywhere from mid-first round grades from Nolan to late first round, and that to late first round, early second, and that's just the way it fell on my board. And listen, I've been on your show for a number of years now, and your guy at Jacksonville's always looking for defensive tackles. So to get 2 good defensive tackles, and I think one will feed or could feed off of each other in the sense that, Walter Nolan, he's more athletic than Mason Graham. He's more of a playmaker. But Graham is more polished, he's more focused, he's more intense, he's more a go guy, on every single snap. So I think they would complement each other quite well.
Is Mason Graham the best interior defensive lineman in this draft?
Hands down. I don't think it's even close. I think there is a big drop-off between he and either Derek Harmon or Kenneth Grant or even Walter Nolan.
How come we don't?
I think the other thing. Let me just think is.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is he's the safest. He's the most polished. He is the one with the least amount of downside risk. So you could sit here and argue, well, Derek Harmon could potentially be a better player 2 or 3 years down the road. Kenneth Grant, I like a lot, could be the better pro. I've even made that argument. But you know what you're getting with Mason Graham, and you're getting a guy that's going to go 100 miles an hour every time you put him on the field.
Tony, most people have him ranked as, a top 5 overall player, or many do. Some have him ranked as the number 3 position player outside of quarterbacks. Why don't we see him mocked in the top 4 more frequently, along with Hunter and Carter?
Well, because I think, number one, you've got a quarterback going at the top of the draft.
Sure.
After that, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are better prospects. Abdul Carter is the number 1 prospect on my board. And then number 4, you look at the Patriots. Yeah, he's higher rated than either of the offensive tackles, but they took Drake May last year. They got a screaming need at the left tackle spot. You want to ruin a young quarterback? Don't protect him. I mean, that's Jacksonville has had a bit of an issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's just such a screaming need at left tackle, and it's really not a deep position that the Patriots would take one of the tackles over Mason Graham.
Do you believe Ashton Jeanty is in play to New England at 4 or Jacksonville at 5?
There's been some speculation about that. I've not heard anything concrete. And, I don't know why it would be, especially in a draft that is so deep at the running back position. I like Jeanty. He's head and shoulders better than any running back prospect in this draft. But you're going to be able to get not just good running backs, but potentially starting running backs and feature running backs later on in the second, third, potentially even the 4th round. So if you're looking at an offensive tackle there, at 5 or 4 or 5, or a defensive tackle, somebody like that, versus a good running back that you can get later on, I think you go with the lineman first.
Well, and the follow-up would be, well, everyone mocks him, Jeanty, that is, going 6 to the Raiders and nobody bats an eye, or 10 to the Bears. You actually, though, wrote in your notes column today, I believe it was, that be on the lookout potentially for Armand Membou to the Raiders. What are you hearing about the 6th pick?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I was speaking with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about Ashton Jeanty, and they said, watch Armand Membou, because Spytek, the new general manager of the Raiders, who comes from Tampa Bay, remembers the tremendous success they had with Tristan Wirfs. And we talked about how much input he's going to have. Is Pete Carroll going to make the final decision? And then I said, well, if that's true, you got to consider Jacksonville for Armand Membou. I mean, with Liam Cohen there. And they said, absolutely. They said, Membou's going to go a lot earlier than people think. And they think the sweet spot for Membou is potentially 4, 5, 6, or 7. So, there's a possibility that any of those teams, if Membou's available, one of them being the Jacksonville Jaguars, could take Membou, and then which means that Jeanty would likely fall to 10 to the Chicago Bears.
If you are a betting man, Tony, and I don't know if you are, but if you were, who's the better bet to go first, Will Campbell or Armand Membou?
Well, again, I think Campbell will be first because he's more the pure left tackle, which is what the New England Patriots really need. Membou is a tremendously athletic right tackle who's a projection to left tackle. Some people feel he can play left tackle. But, there's a lot of thought, people I talk to more and more, that Armand Membou could be the first offensive tackle. Right now, where we sit a week and a day out from the draft, I'm going to say it's Will Campbell, but I got to put an asterisk there.
Gotcha.
Have you heard anything about what the Saints want to do at quarterback with the news earlier this week regarding Derek Carr?
Well, I don't know that there's been any final assessment on Carr for 2025. And I know there's been a lot of projection. Well, now they got to take a quarterback at 9. And people I've talked to, and I feel the same way, is no quarterback at 9 is going to really help the New Orleans Saints in 2025, whether it be Shedeur Sanders or Jaxson Dart. If Derek Carr can't play and you're starting one of those two guys, underneath center right away, it's not going to help your immediate your season in 2025. You draft those guys because you feel 2 or 3 years down the road they're going to be your starting quarterback. It would be foolish for them to change their draft plans just to get a quarterback because of the Derek Carr situation, rather than trying to maybe trade for a veteran. Aiden O'Connell's name has been thrown out there. I know they'd like to probably, if Carr can't play, they'd love to trade for Kirk Cousins, but the Atlanta Falcons aren't going to trade within the division. But again, we have to get a final word on Carr.
Do you think, what's your feel for how many teams might actually like Jaxson Dart more than Sanders, or is that overblown?
No, I don't think it's overblown, but I think there are some teams that like Dart over Sanders. He's clean, he's big, he's a pocket passer. You don't have to, you don't have to deal. He doesn't have a father that's going to be in the media 24/7. And the fact is this: let's put all that aside. Jaxson Dart has shown a lot of progress in his game the past 3 years. There's no doubt about it. Where Shedeur Sanders on the field, I don't think he's made much progress from 2023 to 2024. In fact, I think he regressed in certain areas.
There was a lot of talk early on in the draft process this year, Tony, about Will Johnson potentially even ultimately landing in Jacksonville at corner for this team. He had his pro day workout earlier this week. Has he moved up in the league's mind after the pro day workout this week?
Not that I've heard, and I was one of those people who early on mocked Will Johnson to the Jacksonville Jaguars. It seemed like a perfect fit. The problem with, even the workout aside, he had the injury, he had the turf toe injury. He also did not play well when he was on the field. He was playing more backed off the line of scrimmage. He was giving up a lot of underneath receptions. So I think what's going to happen is the teams are going to talk to Wink Martindale and the Michigan coaches to find out what happened. Was it a schematic thing? Did Will Johnson just mail it in? Was it a situation where it was an injury? If Will Johnson can get back to where he was in 2022 and 2023, he is an absolute steal outside the top 7 picks. We'll see what happens.
Tony Pauline, SportsKeeda.com, here with us for a couple more minutes. Tony, I found this interesting this morning. My perception of the top 2 tight ends is that Tyler Warren is more the rugged inline. He can give you help in the passing game as well, but he's more the two-way tight end. And Colston Loveland is a little bit more finesse is such a negative word sometimes, but more of the pass-catching specialist, not as down in the trenches dirty as Warren can be. Yet I saw Matt Miller of ESPN, who we have a lot of respect for as well, say today he thinks Colston Loveland is actually the better blocker than Tyler Warren. For the Jags, who moved on from a move tight end type in Evan Ingram, if they were to go tight end, let's say they move back to 9 or 10, who would be the better option, better fit for Jacksonville among those 2 players?
So first thing is, I don't agree at all that Colston Loveland's a better blocker than Tyler Warren. Not at all. He really wasn't asked to do it. I agree with your assessment. And I think the easier way to say it is Colston Loveland is more Brock Bowers than Tyler Warren is Brock Bowers. So if you're looking for the move tight end, the guy to get down the field and make big plays, that's Colston Loveland. He's more the natural pass catcher. He's the faster on the field. We never saw him run the 40. We didn't see Tyler Warner do anything, any testing either before the draft. But he's more the natural pass catcher. Now, Warren, like Will Johnson, had an injury this season, which limited his play, and he wasn't very effective. So with Loveland, you're more going back on the 2023 film rather than what you saw in 2024. There are a lot of teams that have Loveland graded ahead of Warren. I have Loveland graded ahead of Warren. I think the appeal for Warren is what you just mentioned, plus he's going to give you earlier returns. If you want a week one starter at the tight end position from this draft, you're going to select Tyler Warren. Colston Loveland's got the shoulder injury. It's an AC joint. I'm not a doctor, but the medical examiners, the team doctors will look at that differently and come to different diagnoses. And that remains to be seen. But, if you want the pass catcher, the down the field guy, you're going with Colston Loveland. Warren is a solid blocker. I think Warren is more the flavor of the day. People see the highlight films. 14 receptions in the game against USC, even though I believe that Drew Allard, the quarterback, was targeting him to his detriment because there were other receivers wide open all over the field. I agree with your assessment. If you want that day one starter that is, a traditional tight end, can block and can pass catch as a solid short and intermediate pass catcher, you're looking Tyler Warren.
Tony, looking at a couple of wide receivers that are expected to go in the second or third round, Jayden Higgins versus Jake Bech. What is your opinion on both of those guys, and what would your argument be for each of them?
I think that Higgins has got a lot more upside than Bech. I mean, Bech had a tremendous season, great story, overcame a lot, catches everything that's thrown in his direction, as does Jayden Higgins, who's 6'4", as opposed to 6'1.5", which is what Bech is, 214 pounds, and by the way, ran 4.47 at the combine. I just like Hayden's upside better, and if teams can get him to run, coach him to run to his 40 time, you're going to have an outstanding pass catcher, outstanding receiver on your hands.
Tony, I'm not sure if I've asked you specifically about Terrance Ferguson, the Oregon tight end, but describe his play style and where he fits in the NFL offense.
A lot like Tyler Warren. I mean, he's a good pass catcher, but he's not a downfield threat, even though he ran a 4.63 at the combine. Doesn't play like that. He's a nasty blocker. He's a real good blocker. He's more your traditional tight end. So if you want that sort of tight end, third round area, you're looking at Terrance Ferguson, but he's not the downfield Colston Loveland, Elijah Warren, or Rondé Gatson type of player at the position.
You mentioned the depth at the running back position in this year's class. Who are some of your favorite running backs that could still be there even deep into day three potentially this year?
Well, into day three, I'll say LaQuint Allen of Syracuse, a pounder on the inside, even though he's 205 pounds, a terrific downhill runner, and an outstanding pass catcher in the backfield. Jarquez Hunter, a little bit different, more from Auburn, more of your speedier running back, hits the hole, can run to daylight and hit the home run. Jaquavius Marks, real good in all areas of the game. Has the size to run on the inside, the agility to turn the corner, a real good pass catcher out of the backfield. And then the late round, there's going to be Ollie Gordon of Oklahoma State. Did not have the season that people thought after a tremendous campaign in 2023, but he's got decent size, at 6'1.5", 226 pounds. He's also a real smart running back. Sees the field, reads the defense, consistently keeps the play in bounds. They're very aggressive and physical, doesn't finish plays by running out of bounds. And another guy who I really like is going to be a late-round pick, Kyle Manegi of Rutgers. Not a great tester, but just a tremendous football player.